I was stationed at a remote Arctic base. We uncovered something that should have stayed buried. The biting wind was the first thing you noticed, a constant, gnawing presence that permeated everything, seeping into your bones and settling there like a malignant frost. Then came the silence, a vast, oppressive emptiness more profound than any silence you could imagine. I was assigned to Outpost 73, a remote Arctic research base nestled deep within the unforgiving expanse of Ellesmere Island. It was a desolate place, a cluster of prefabricated structures clinging precariously to the frozen earth, a monument to human ambition dwarfed by the sheer immensity of the Arctic wilderness. The mission was ostensibly scientific, a geological survey seeking to understand the region's glacial history and its potential impact on global climate change. The team consisted of a motley crew: Dr. Eris Thorne, the driven, almost obsessive lead geologist; Maya Sharma, the stoic and exceptionally skilled geophysicist; Ben Carter, the wisecracking but competent engineer; and myself, Liam Walker, the communications officer, a glorified babysitter responsible for maintaining contact with the outside world, a world that felt impossibly distant from our icy prison. Our days were monotonous, a relentless cycle of collecting samples, analyzing data, and battling the encroaching despair that seemed to emanate from the very ice beneath our feet. Thorne was the engine driving us, his energy bordering on manic, his enthusiasm fueled by a seemingly bottomless cup of black coffee and a fervor that bordered on obsession. He spoke of ancient geological formations, of hidden layers of sediment containing secrets from a bygone era, secrets that held the key to understanding the planet's past and predicting its future. Maya was the grounded one, the voice of reason who kept Thorne's more outlandish theories in check, her sharp intellect and meticulous approach a foil to his boundless enthusiasm. Ben kept us all sane, his humor a lifeline in the face of the crushing isolation, his practical skills invaluable in keeping the base operational. I mostly just listened, relaying messages and trying to ignore the creeping sense of unease that had begun to settle within me. The first sign that something was amiss came during a deep ice core drilling operation. Thorne, driven by a hunch based on some anomaly in the seismic data, had insisted on drilling far deeper than initially planned, pushing the limits of our equipment and our patience. We had reached a depth of nearly 2 kilometers when the drill suddenly hit something solid, something harder than any rock or ice we had encountered before. The drill bit shuddered and then stopped, the grinding noise replaced by an unnerving silence. Thorne was ecstatic, his eyes gleaming with a feverish intensity. He ordered us to retrieve the core, his voice trembling with anticipation. The core was unlike anything we had ever seen. It wasn't rock, nor was it ice. It was a dark, almost black material, smooth and polished like obsidian, yet strangely organic in appearance. It pulsed with a faint, internal luminescence, a subtle throbbing that seemed to resonate deep within your bones. As we examined the core, a strange wave of nausea washed over us, a feeling of profound wrongness, as if we had violated something sacred, something that should have remained undisturbed. The feeling intensified as Thorne began to analyze the core, his excitement growing with each passing hour. The initial analysis revealed nothing conclusive, the material defied conventional classification, its composition unlike anything found on Earth. But as Thorne delved deeper, he began to uncover strange and unsettling anomalies. The core contained traces of organic compounds, but not the kind found in any known life form. These compounds were alien, utterly foreign, and yet undeniably biological. More disturbingly, the core emitted a faint electromagnetic field, a field that resonated at a frequency that seemed to affect the human brain. We began to experience vivid dreams, disturbing visions filled with alien landscapes and grotesque creatures. I dreamt of vast, cyclopean cities buried beneath the ice, of colossal beings with shimmering scales and eyes that burned with an ancient intelligence. Maya complained of headaches and a growing sense of paranoia, convinced that we were being watched. Ben started seeing things in the periphery of his vision, fleeting shadows that disappeared when he turned to look. Thorne, however, seemed unaffected, his mind completely consumed by the core, his obsession blinding him to the growing danger. He became increasingly secretive, spending hours alone in his lab, poring over data and muttering to himself in a language we couldn't understand. He stopped sleeping, his eyes bloodshot and dilated, his movements jerky and erratic. He started talking about the core as if it were alive, referring to it as the sleeper and claiming that it was communicating with him, revealing secrets of the universe that were beyond human comprehension. One night, I was awakened by a blood-curdling scream. I rushed to Thorn's lab, finding the door locked from the inside. I pounded on the door, shouting his name, but there was no response. Ben arrived, and together we forced the door open. The scene that greeted us was horrifying. Thorn was standing in the center of the lab, bathed in an eerie green light emanating from the core. His eyes were wide and vacant, his body contorted in unnatural angles. He was chanting in a guttural language, his voice a distorted echo of his former self. The core was levitating in the air, pulsing with an increasingly intense light, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. As we watched in horror, Thorn's body began to convulse violently. His skin turned pale and translucent, and his eyes rolled back in his head. Then, with a final, agonizing scream, his body exploded in a shower of blood and bone. The core crashed to the floor, the green light fading, leaving behind an acrid smell that burned our nostrils. We stood there, paralyzed by terror, the silence broken only by the sound of our own ragged breathing. The horror of what we had witnessed was beyond comprehension, a nightmare made real. We knew then that we had stumbled upon something ancient and terrible, something that should have remained buried beneath the ice. We tried to contact the outside world, but the communications system was dead, fried by the electromagnetic pulse that had emanated from the core. We were alone, trapped in the Arctic wilderness with a malevolent force that had already claimed one of our own. We knew we had to destroy the core to eradicate this abomination before it could claim us all. But how could we destroy something that defied the laws of physics, something that seemed to possess a will of its own? We decided to bury it back where it came from, hoping that the deep ice would contain it once more. We loaded the core onto a sled, its dark surface radiating an unnatural cold that seemed to suck the heat from our bodies. As we dragged the sled across the frozen wasteland, we felt as if we were being watched, as if unseen eyes were following our every move. Shadows danced in the periphery of our vision, and the wind seemed to whisper unintelligible words. We reached the drill site and lowered the core back into the hole, the darkness swallowing it whole. As the core descended, we heard a faint humming sound, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the ice and into our very souls. We filled the hole with ice and snow, sealing it as best we could, hoping to contain the evil that lay beneath. But as we turned to leave, we saw something that made our blood run cold. Standing on the horizon, silhouetted against the pale Arctic sky, were figures, tall and gaunt, their bodies shimmering with an unnatural light. They were the creatures from my dreams, the beings from the Cyclopean cities buried beneath the ice. They had been awakened, summoned by the core, and they were coming for us. We ran, driven by primal fear, our hearts pounding in our chests, the icy wind whipping against our faces. We knew they were faster, stronger, more powerful than us. We knew we couldn't outrun them forever. We reached the base and barricaded ourselves inside, hoping to hold them off until we could find a way to escape. But the creatures were relentless, their inhuman forms pressing against the walls, their eyes burning with an ancient malice. They began to probe our minds, filling our heads with terrifying visions, driving us to the brink of madness. Maya succumbed first, her mind breaking under the strain of their psychic assault. She began to babble incoherently, her eyes wide with terror, muttering about the Old Ones and the Great Devourer. She turned on us, her face contorted with rage, accusing us of unleashing the evil that was now consuming us all. We tried to restrain her, but she was too strong, her body possessed by an alien force. She attacked Ben, her nails tearing at his face, her teeth sinking into his flesh. I managed to pull her off him, but not before she had inflicted a mortal wound. Ben collapsed to the floor, his lifeblood staining the snow-covered floor. As he lay dying, he whispered, "I told you this place was cursed." Maya continued to rave, her body writhing on the floor, her voice a guttural screech. Then, with a final, convulsive shudder, she fell silent, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. I was alone, the last survivor of Outpost 73, trapped in a frozen hell with creatures from another world. I knew my time was limited, that they would eventually find a way to break through my defenses. But I refused to surrender. I would fight to the bitter end to protect the world from the evil that we had unleashed. I armed myself with every weapon I could find, determined to make them pay for every drop of blood they had spilled. I waited, listening to the wind howling outside, the sound of their inhuman voices echoing in the darkness. They were coming for me, and I would be ready. The creatures finally broke through, their grotesque forms filling the doorway, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They lunged at me, their claws outstretched, their mouths agape, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. I fought with a ferocity born of desperation, my every blow fueled by rage and fear. I managed to kill several of them, but they were too many, their numbers seemingly endless. They overwhelmed me, their claws tearing at my flesh, their teeth sinking into my bones. As I lay dying, I saw Thorn among them, his eyes vacant, his body a puppet of the alien force that controlled him. He smiled, a chilling, inhuman smile that sent a shiver down my spine. He raised his hand, and the creatures ceased their attack. He knelt beside me, his face close to mine, his breath cold and stale. "You cannot stop us," he whispered, his voice a distorted echo of his former self. "We have been waiting for this moment for millennia. The time of the old ones has come." He plunged his hand into my chest, ripping out my heart. As my life ebbed away, I saw the world fading, the darkness closing in. But in my final moments, I made a vow, a solemn promise that I would not let their evil prevail. I would return, somehow, someday, to finish what I had started. I would destroy the core, and I would banish these creatures back to the darkness from whence they came. The cold claimed me then, the icy embrace of the Arctic sealing my fate. Outpost 73 became a tomb, a monument to human folly and the horrors that lie hidden beneath the ice. But the story doesn't end there. The evil that we unleashed remains, a ticking time bomb waiting to be detonated. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of the Arctic wilderness, the Old Ones are stirring, preparing to reclaim their dominion over the Earth. The ice holds secrets best left undisturbed. We learned that lesson in the most brutal way imaginable. The silence of the Arctic is not emptiness, it is a shroud concealing horrors beyond human comprehension. And I, though dead, will not rest until those horrors are brought to light and banished forever. My sacrifice will not be in vain. The nightmare continues, and the world must be warned. The sleeper stirs, and it hungers. The drilling operation was a disaster waiting to happen, fueled by Thorn's hubris and our own blind faith in science. The core was a Pandora's box, and we were foolish enough to open it. The creatures are not merely physical beings, they are psychic predators capable of manipulating our minds and preying on our fears. Their existence defies the laws of nature, their origins shrouded in an ancient mystery that predates humanity itself. The chanting was a ritual, a summoning, a dark incantation that awakened the sleeper and opened a gateway for the Old Ones to return to our world. The pulsating light was not merely energy, it was a beacon, a signal that pierced the veil between dimensions, alerting these ancient entities to our presence. The electromagnetic field was a weapon, a psychic amplifier that amplified their power and allowed them to control our minds. The vivid dreams were not mere figments of our imagination, they were glimpses into their reality, visions of their cyclopean cities and their grotesque forms. Maya's paranoia was not simply a psychological reaction, it was a premonition, a sense of impending doom that resonated with her own psychic abilities. Ben's fleeting shadows were not hallucinations, they were manifestations of the creature's presence, their attempts to infiltrate our perception. Thorn's obsession was not merely scientific curiosity, it was a form of possession, his mind gradually being taken over by the alien consciousness within the core. The explosion was not merely a physical event, it was a transformation, Thorn's body being used as a vessel for the Old Ones to enter our world. The dark, pulsing material of the core was not merely an alien substance, it was a living entity, a seed of cosmic horror that had been dormant for millennia. The silence of the Arctic is not merely the absence of sound, it is the presence of something else, something ancient and malevolent that lurks just beyond the veil of perception. The ice is not merely frozen water, it is a prison, a barrier that keeps these horrors contained. But the ice is melting, and the barriers are weakening, and the Old Ones are stirring from their slumber. We were not merely scientists, we were unwitting pawns in a cosmic game manipulated by forces beyond our understanding. The mission was not merely a geological survey, it was a catalyst, an event that triggered the awakening of an ancient evil. Our deaths were not merely tragic accidents, they were sacrifices, offerings to the Old Ones to appease their hunger. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the world is in grave danger. The Old Ones are coming, and they will not rest until they have consumed everything. But hope remains, a flickering ember in the darkness. The knowledge that I have gained, the sacrifices that we have made, will not be in vain. I will return, somehow, someday, to finish what I have started. I will destroy the core, and I will banish these creatures back to the darkness from whence they came. The sleeper must be silenced, and the Old Ones must be stopped. The fate of the world depends on it.